So today I'm gonna rank the AFC South teams by position 1 through 4, and we're gonna add up the total of each position and determine which team is currently the most talented in the AFC South. The one with the lowest score, obviously, is going to be the one with the most talent. Let's start this off. Let's start off with head coach. I decided to include head coach in this because why not? You know, head coach is like a big part of a team, really. Without a good head coach, you could have all the talent in the world, but without a good head coach, you won't do much, really. Same thing if it's vice versa. You could have a bad team, but if you have a good head coach, that team's going to perform better than it really should. So, head coach, I think I'm going to go top to bottom. So, the best head coach in the division, I'd say, has to go to Bill O'Brien, honestly. And I believe Bill O'Brien's an excellent head coach. I mean, what he's done these past 3 years, 9-7, 2 playoff appearances, division titles, obviously a playoff win, all without a quarterback. It's pretty damn impressive. So I think he's the clear number 1 here. My number 2 has to go to Doug Marrone from the Jaguars. Man, I absolutely love Doug Marrone. I think it was an excellent hire by the Jaguars. I like what he did over there in Buffalo. And I think the Buffaloes could have probably already been a playoff team had he not resigned, honestly. He's that good of a head coach. We saw it last year against the Titans. He comes in, boom, they blow out the Titans. And then I believe Blake Bortles had no interceptions those last 2 games. So obviously, Doug Marrone, like Bill O'Brien, gets the best out of his players. That's why I have him at number 2. At number 3, I have Mike Mularkey. Now, Mike Mularkey, man, I didn't like the hire when the Titans hired him, but he did take the Titans from 3-13, I want to say, to 9-7. So you can't really ignore that. But the one flaw I do find, or 2 flaws I do find on Mike Mularkey is, 1, for some reason he can't win in the division, and in order to win the division, you have to win in the division. So that's a major flaw from him. And another thing is, this guy prepares his guys every week to play. He doesn't prepare them to win. If you don't know what I mean, is these guys had some close ass games with the Bears, with the Broncos, yeah, but they won. The Raiders, like, they had some close games. Like, look, this team should not have beat the Broncos, honestly. They shouldn't have beat the Chiefs, but they barely won. But this team should have blown out the Bears. They should have blown out the Browns, but they barely won. What does that tell me? It tells me that Mike Mularkey, like, his team is playing up and down to his competition, and that's never a good thing. That's usually going to result in 7-9, 8-8, or 9-7 records usually. And last place, number 4, Chuck Pagano. Man, just how does this guy have a job? That's all I'm going to say. This guy does not know how to develop talent. He's pretty much incompetent. I don't know how he survived this past offseason. He should have gotten canned along with what's his name, Ryan Grigson, and I'm pretty sure Colts fans would agree with that. He's just not a good coach. Anyways, let's move on to the quarterback position. Quarterback position, number 1, I mean, I think it's pretty fucking obvious. Andrew Luck. No need to, go further in depth into that. Number 2, Marcus Mariota. I don't think that's even debatable either. Maybe Mariota could maybe at some point overthrow Luck, like 2 or 3 years down the line. But as of right now, it's 1 and 2, Luck and Mariota. And at 3, now this is where things get tricky. You got Bortles, who I think is absolutely terrible. And I say the Jaguars fan base is half and half divided. Half think he can, be good still. They think he's salvageable, and the other half are fed up with him and want to get rid of him already. So I don't really know where to, because the Texans, Tom Savage and Watson, we haven't seen what they can do, really, like at all. Well, we've gotten like a little bit of Tom Savage, but that's nowhere near enough to, truly determine what Tom Savage is. So this is pretty tough to rank them accordingly. I want to put Savage and Watson above Bortles because they have, in my opinion, the Texans QB position has more potential. But I'm not basing this off of potential. I'm basing this as of what I know, what I've seen, and Bortles last year. I mean, the Texans QBs were dead last year, and Bortles at least was like around 28-ish. So I'm gonna have to put Bortles above the Texans quarterbacks, honestly, just because I've already seen what Bortles can do, even though it, in my opinion, is not good. I have no idea what the Texans quarterbacks are gonna do. It could be good, it could be average, it could be absolutely terrible, catastrophic, maybe even worse than Brock Osweiler. I don't know. So let's just leave it at that. Texans have number 4 in QB in the division. Jaguars have 3. Now let's move on to the running backs. I think the clear front runner is probably the Tennessee Titans. And before this video was recorded, when I was planning out this video, it was really tough for me to rank this because the Titans have Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, obviously, but the Texans have Lamar Miller, Alfred Blue, Deontay Foreman, and Akeem Hunt. But then, what's his name? Deontay Foreman went over there and got in trouble, so it made me think he's not going to get cut. I'm just going to say that. But he's probably not going to get much playing time at the start because you know how this organization is. They don't tolerate any of that, off the field issues. So what I'm thinking is O'Brien's probably going to not play Deontay Foreman enough at the start of the season. Therefore, he's not going to be effective. And we already know last season, every time Jonathan Grimes and Akeem Hunt touched the football, good stuff would happen. But for some reason, they were underutilized. So what's the whole point of having a good running back or a good set of running backs if you're not going to utilize them? So Titans 1, Texans 2, and at 3 I have the Jacksonville Jaguars with Leonard Fournette. I absolutely loved the Leonard Fournette pick. Other than that, I don't like their other running backs, honestly. Chris Ivory, TJ Yeldon, I think they're terrible. I don't know why they paid that money for Ivory, honestly. If they already had Yeldon, even though Yeldon I think is injury prone. And at 4 we got the Colts with Frank Gore. But however, there is a little buzz going around about a running back they picked up late in the draft. I want to say his last name is Mack. I forgot his first name, and I'm not gonna look it up. But his last name I want to say is Mack. But he's getting a little buzz. And I want to say in my Titans video, I said wide receiver and corner after quarterback are the hardest positions to transition into the NFL. But the easiest one, and this is without a doubt in my mind, the easiest to transition to in the NFL is running back, honestly. So, that Matt guy might end up starting for the Colts at some point down the line in the next season, and he might end up being their running back of the future. We don't know that. Now that we're done with running backs, let's move on to wide receivers. Without a doubt, Jaguars number 1 wide receivers, not even debatable. Hearns, Robinson, Lee. It's not much of a debate here. At number 2, 2 and 3 is pretty tough for me because I have the Texans and Colts. Because the Texans have Hopkins, Fuller, Braxton Miller, Jalen Strong, and the Colts have T.Y. Hilton, Moncrief, Philip Dorsett, and Kamar Aiken, who they just picked up. I don't really think much of Philip Dorsett. I think he's absolutely terrible. And Moncrief, I don't really think much of him either. He's just your everyday mediocre receiver that your quarterback makes look good. I don't think he's much talented. So ultimately, it just leaves him with T.Y. Hilton and Kamar Aiken, who they just picked up. And I'm going to go with the Texans here because, you know, free agent acquisitions, you never know how they're going to turn out. So, it's Jaguars, Texans, Colts, and at 4, I have the Titans. The Titans have a bunch of, I guess you could say, average to mediocre receivers. I mean, maybe 2 years ago, Decker might have been, you know, a good receiver, but he's, you know, he's older now. We got to understand that. And Matthews isn't really all that great either. Tajay Sharp, not really all that impressive either. And as I said before, Corey Davis, I don't think is going to be that effective this year because the jump from a small school to the NFL is huge. So he's going to need a lot of adjusting. So for right now, this is just for next season. I have the Titans at 4 when it comes to wide receivers. Now, tight ends. Titans obviously number 1. Delaney Walker, absolute monster. But after that, again, Texans and Colts fighting for 2 and 3. But I'm going to give it to C.J. Fiedorowicz because he's just a better, way better run blocker than, what's his name? Damn it, I forgot his name. I had it. I was just... Jack Doyle, there we go. He's better than Jack Doyle. They had pretty similar stats last season. But, you know, you got to consider Brock Osweiler's little crappy ass. Something you got to consider. But this was really close, honestly. Jack Doyle and C.J. Fiedorowicz. But I'll give it to Fiedorowicz because of the run blocking abilities. And at 4, we have the Jaguars. Mercedes Lewis. Maybe if it was 4 years ago, he probably could have been ranked higher. But now at 33 years old, I don't think he should be that high. Could be that high. Probably not even going to do much. Maybe he will actually because he's going to benefit from his other receivers. But whatever. Let's move on to the offensive line. Without a doubt, Titans number 1. It's not even debatable. Taylor Lewan, Jack Conklin, their interior offensive line, especially the tackles. They had the best tackle tandem last year. So that's not really debatable. And after that, it's just a huge drop-off. I mean, the Titans have a top 3, top 4 offensive line. And then the Texans, Colts, and Jaguars all have, I even say, bottom 10 offensive lines, honestly. But at number 2, I might have to put the Texans because they do have a proven veteran in Dwayne Brown. They have Greg Manx, who was solid last season. They got Nick Martin coming back from injuries. Probably going to play guard. So their offensive line is going to improve some. And then at 3, I have the Jaguars. They have their center, who was pretty... No, not pretty. He was good last year. He was the top 5 center, I want to say, last year. And then they also picked up from Miami. They traded with Miami for Brandon Albert at left tackle, who should be pretty solid for a few more years, 2 or 3. And then they picked up Cam Robinson, the top 3 offensive lineman, top 3 offensive tackle, in this past draft. So, you know, they got some potential there. And at 4, I have the Colts, because their right side of the offensive line is just atrocious. Probably even worse than ours was last year, Texans fans. They have their left tackle, Costanzo, is pretty damn inconsistent. He's not very good of a pass blocker either. He's a pretty good run blocker. I'll give him that. But pass blocking, not that good. They got Jack Mewhort. Yeah, Jack Mewhort an outstanding offensive guard. And they got Ryan Kelly, who they just happened to pick up from last year's draft, the center, who could be pretty damn good, actually. So it's just the right side of the line is so bad from the Colts that's kind of bringing them down, and Costanzo's pass blocking flaws. Anyways, now we're done with the offense. So let's go ahead and move on to the defense. So defense line, I think it's pretty clear here. The Texans are the best one. Got DJ Reader, Joel Heath, J.J. Watt, and indications Jadeveon Clowney will be playing. Defensive line, there's not much to be said. Watt, Clowney. Watt's the best defensive player in the NFL. Clowney's an up-and-coming defensive player in the NFL. So, yeah, I think it's clear who's number one. After that, I'm going to give it to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars have Unique Ngakwe. I was told how to pronounce it a few weeks ago, but I forgot. I think that's right. Anyways, he's there. They got Malik Jackson. They now paired him with Calais Campbell. And don't forget about Dante Fowler, who was a top 3 pick in 2014, I want to say, or 15. So they got a pretty good defensive line they're building there. At 3, I have the Tennessee Titans. They don't really have much, but they have something. And that's Jarrell Casey, who in my opinion is still a top 5, I'd say maybe top 3 interior defensive lineman. So they have that going for them. He's an excellent run stopper. Last year he kind of lacked in, pass rush. Sack numbers were low, but he's still a solid interior lineman, defensive lineman. And at 4, we got the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, they don't really have much at defensive line. Yeah, I don't really see much potential in this defensive line. Let's move on to the linebackers. The linebackers, number 1, Texans, but this one's actually pretty close. Actually, so the Texans have Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless, Brian Cushing, Bernard McKinney, and they just picked up Zach Cunningham from this draft, who I think is an excellent pickup. In my opinion, he was the second best linebacker in the draft behind Reuben Foster. So I think they're number 1, but coming in at close second, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars with Telvin Smith, who I absolutely love, and Miles Jack, who could be as good as Telvin Smith, and I love Telvin Smith, so, you know, you paired 2 Telvin Smiths, like, God, Telvin Smith, man. If you guys don't remember, man, Telvin Smith was the guy that caught Lamar Miller in that Jacksonville game from behind. Yeah, he's fast. And they also got Paul Posluszny, who's pretty much their Brian Cushing, pretty much. And they run a 4-3, so they only have 3 linebackers, so there they are. After that, I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have, obviously, Arakpo and Morgan, who were pretty good pass rushing duo last year. And then the interior of that linebacker core isn't really all that great. They got Wesley Woodyard and fuck, what's that guy's name? I forgot the guy's name, but Titans fans let me knew who it was last week. I want to say when I dropped that Titans video, or 2 weeks ago. I forgot who it was. Avery Williamson, I want something like that. But they got him, but they could still use an upgrade at the interior linebacker core. And last and definitely least, we got the Colts again. Yeah, they got Jabal Sheard and John Simon, which are pretty decent, you know, kind of holders, I guess, you know, just be there for now type of guys till they actually get their actual pass rushers, edge rushers, whatever they want to call them. But when we move over to the interior of the defense, the linebackers, they got nobody. They have absolutely nobody. They did pick up that one linebacker from Northwestern, I want to say it was, who I did have my eye on in the draft season, who I think could develop into, a pretty solid uh, linebacker. But as I said, with the quarterbacks, I'm not looking at potentials. I'm looking at what I know or what I think. You know? So now let's move on to the secondary. I think at 1, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye, solid duo. And at safeties, they got, what's his name? They picked up Barry Church. And I forgot their other safety's name. Fuck. But he's also pretty good. And the reason I have him over the Texans is the Texans, yes, they have Kevin Johnson, Jonathan Joseph, and Kareem Jackson. They have more corners. But the Texans don't really have any known safeties, Like, we're assuming that, Corey Moore, KJ Dillon, Curtis Drummond's going to come in and do good. But we don't know that. I'm not going by potential. I'm going by what I know, what I've seen. The only reason the Texans are number 2 is because, obviously, the corners. We know what the corners can do. Kevin Johnson, Jonathan Joseph, Kareem Jackson, solid corners. Maybe Kareem might move to safety. Still, he'd be a better safety probably. At 3, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They have Vontae Davis, who I think is extremely inconsistent. And they picked up Quincy Wilson, who I had my eye on also. He's also a pretty damn solid corner. I think he could develop into a solid number 1 corner. But as of right now, he's probably going to play the number 2 spot. After that, they got Malik Hooker, who they picked up at 16 last year. And I like Malik Hooker. I think he could be a pretty damn good safety if Pagano's gone soon. And at the 4th spot, I have the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, last year, their secondary was atrocious. And it didn't really get much better, honestly, in my opinion, if you ask me. Because Logan Ryan, he's not that good of a corner. He doesn't add much to the team. He might be a solid number 2 corner. And then you got Adoree Jackson, who I just think is an athlete. I don't think he's much of a good football player. I don't know why they drafted him at 18. He might be a pretty solid nickel corner for now, but who's their number 1 corner, really? Like, they have no one on that roster that can go in there week in and week out and shut down A.J. Green, DeAndre Hopkins, T.Y. Hilton, Allen Robinson. Like, they don't have anyone. And when you move on to their safeties, like the Texans, they don't have anyone that's proven. Yes, they picked up Jonathan Cyprien, but Jonathan Cyprien's a box safety. He's a run stopper. He's not someone that's gonna contribute much in the secondary. He's a total liability in coverage. So I have the Titans at the 4th spot. So if you look on the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that the Texans have the most talent in the AFC South, followed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, then the Tennessee Titans, and the Indianapolis Colts being at 4th. Now, guys, this doesn't necessarily mean that the Texans are the best team without a doubt in the AFC South, or that the Colts are the worst team in the AFC South. It just means that the Texans have the most talent and that the Colts have the least talent. That doesn't really mean much, because at the end of the day, all of that talent has to come together and play well. For example, in past years, the Jaguars, like past 2 years, I want to say, the Jaguars have had a pretty damn talented roster, yet they've only won, 6 games in that 2-year span? So we don't know how all this talent is going to come together for each and every individual team. It's just talent. So, yeah, that will be all for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this extra long video. I'm closing in here on 25 minutes. Yeah, I'm probably never going to make a video this long again. Maybe. I doubt it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to comment down below. Make sure to like. Make sure to subscribe for more Texas content. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace. Peace.